winning the Super Bowl.
Think about this. They went to a Super Bowl, lost, tore it down to an extent.
Tore it down. Bleep them picks.
Got back to the Super Bowl. I mean, what was the Patriots-Rams Super Bowl? Was that 18?
That was the 2018 season, yeah.
18 is the year. So in the time from 18 to now, we're still in the 24 season, even though it's 2025, obviously, on the calendar. Between 18 and 25, they have been to 2 Super Bowls, won one, and orchestrated another teardown after winning the Super Bowl that has them. I mean, they miss Aaron Donald for sure, but the defense is arguably as effective as it was when Aaron Donald was the focal point there, even if it takes more pieces and parts to get it done. That is a level of competency that all NFL franchises should aspire to. And it's not just McVay. McVay obviously helps a great deal, but Les Snead, the combination of those two, it should get a great deal more praise than I think they receive on a regular basis. And they're back in the playoffs again. I mean, this is the worst case scenario for the Eagles, right? You would have way rather seen Sam Darnold coming to town instead of Matt Stafford.
I did not know Sean McVay was from Dayton, Ohio. The amount of coaches from Ohio, why is Ohio
nothing
just
else to do?
The breeding ground? I guess, yeah, that's got to be it.
Just nothing
There's
to do.
So many, John Gruden, Jim Harbaugh, Mike Vrabel, Urban Meyer, Sean McVay, so many coaches from the state of Ohio. Anyway, all right, Titans GM search. Just to kind of keep up with the timeline here, on Wednesday, the team officially completed second-round interviews with Chiefs assistant GM Mike Borgonzi and Bears assistant GM Ian Cunningham. Back on Tuesday, they completed an interview with Director of Player Personnel of the Bills, Terrence Gray, and Colts assistant GM Ed Dodds. That leaves 2 candidates that they have yet to talk to that, supposedly today and tomorrow, or just today. Do you know the exact timeline of when they will speak with Packers VP of Player Personnel?
I believe they're trying to knock this out today, if I'm not mistaken.
John Eric Sullivan and Bucs assistant GM John Spytek.
So, talked about it yesterday. I'd like Borgonzi. I think that there's a good enough track record at multiple different positions within a successful organization that would make the most sense. He's going to have options. What you have there with the Jets job, the attractiveness of running the show, even though you're not outright running the show. I mean, Woody Johnson still exists and can undermine you when it comes to trades and things like that, the way that he has reportedly done. So it's not quite as cut and dry, but you know that you're going to be the person with personnel say if you go to New York versus Tennessee. When you come here, you are deferring to not just your ownership, but the president of football operations, who has final roster say, without being the general manager for reasons that are, again, inexplicable.
But, again, what is a better situation? Having a Woody Johnson sort of just hovering over your head, just that variable of sort of being able to strike at any time that he wants.
And he's around a lot, like around their facility a lot more than Amy is on a day-to-day basis.
Or a Chad Brinker that if you're Mike Borgonzi, you have a relationship with, that you will be in these meetings with, that you will be trying to arrive to the same destination with, so to speak, in terms of decisions and acquisitions. I don't think
also a meat shield.
I don't think it's as clear-cut as, well, you have final say in one, you don't in the other. I just think it gets more complicated than that.
Well, we went through the complications for both of them yesterday, and neither of them sound. I mean, again, they're not good jobs because these teams are losing, and there's reasons why these people got fired. What you can turn them into, whether you do a good enough job to turn them around, is an entirely different proposition. But looking at both of them, you're looking at them being like, it's the lesser of two evils, essentially. And I can't answer what's most important to these candidates because obviously that's what the interview process is trying to figure out. So to try and, say, just again, it'd be curious to see. It's not an answer that we can have yet. It's a hypothetical that you can pose or that you can wonder about in your head. We're going to find out whether this job is attractive to people who have options. There are not many options. There are 3 general manager jobs. It's Raiders, Jets, and Titans. But the top candidates are going to be the top candidates for basically all 3 jobs. And if the top candidate for the Titans decides, Jets sound more appealing for what I'm looking for at this stage of my career, then that's going to tell you. If they get there, I mean, I don't know that they would tell us if they didn't land their top person, right? It's kind of like coaches or players. We got our guy who was in the draft. It was our guy the whole time, no matter how many different ways we had to work around to try and get back into the mix. We can't answer the question. It's going to be fascinating to see. We probably won't have an answer definitively until next week.
Those are your headlines.
All right, very good. Coming up next, pressure in the NFL playoffs. Two MVP candidates, the two top MVP candidates, getting ready to square off. Who's facing more pressure in their respective situations, Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen? We'll talk about it next. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. 615-737-1045, the number. Jump in there if you want. Jackson, did you fix the stream?
I did.
Was it your fault the stream crashed?
Nope. Looked over and the computer was off.
Do we believe you?
I believe it was all your misspellings.
Does any show on this radio station have as bad a culture as we do? The amount of finger pointing, and not, public finger pointing, like the amount of knives out between the people that work on the show. And it really doesn't matter who works on the show. It just seems to infect everybody, which is a me problem, I guess. But
it's just the way it works on the Buck Riesling show.
All I know is it's not my fault.
Like the one, yeah. Don't worry, bud. I know that.
It's just all of us pointing fingers at each other.
There is not a worse culture than the one that I feel like I have created. But I feel like I am taking too much credit even for that. I think you two are as big a part of the problem. And everybody else that's come in here between 10 and 1.
You know who else has seemed to be part of the problem?
Don't transition yet. I'm going to take phone calls before we get to this topic. Look at him. He can't even settle down for a second.
No one even let me be a professional.
Yeah, okay, go ahead. 615-737-1045 is the number. Miles wants to chime in.
Hey, how are you? Good morning.
Good.
Hey, I got a solution. If a team loses 3 games the previous year, if they lose 6 games the next year, you're out of contention, and we're only going to pay you half your salary, but your season's over. There's some humor.
Thanks for the call.
I love how much he cracked himself up with that. Oh, man.
I regret cutting you off now.
I'm not even sure what, so
I don't know.
He's saying you remove yourself from content, you just stop playing games?
I guess. V-Love tweeted me yesterday and said we have the worst callers on the radio station.
Oh, stop. I love callers like Miles. I was going to bring up Deontay Johnson.
You didn't laugh until he started wheezing, laughing in the back.
The funniest part was him laughing at his own thing. Deontay Johnson, back with the Ravens.
He looked at me like I had 6 heads a couple of weeks ago when I said I wanted to stop taking calls.
The callers are
not acquitting themselves lately.
Backbone. Deontay Johnson, back with the Ravens. They have claimed him right after Houston drops him. So the Texans waived Deontay Johnson after he appears in one game because he was pouting in the locker room after the Chargers game because he played 15 snaps, was targeted once, caught one pass for 12 yards, and looked visibly upset in the locker room, fully dressed out after the game. He joins Baltimore, but he doesn't join them until February 10th, which is after the Super Bowl, as an unrestricted free agent. So the Ravens have a chance at a 2026 compensatory pick. So I love the Ravens going chestnut checkers with this and saying, all right, we wasted time with Deontay Johnson earlier. Might as well try to get something out of this whole situation. This dude has played for Pittsburgh, Carolina, Baltimore, Houston, and then Baltimore again since the start.
He won't play for Baltimore.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Since the start of the 2024 season. So all that to say, the Ravens have Deontay Johnson back. He will not factor as they are 1-point dogs. No, excuse me, 1-point favorites. 1-point favorites in Buffalo at Highmark Stadium. Does that surprise you that the Ravens are road favorites at the Bills?
No, they've got the best offense in football.
I know, but that road trip in the freezing cold against another MVP candidate, I'm just slightly surprised that
the Bills don't match up well against the Ravens the way that they did. They very much matched up well against the Denver Broncos. How much of that game did you watch? Because I didn't watch it live. I watched it after the fact. But there was one discernible difference to me that Cosell also touched on that the Bills could do against Denver that they will not do against Baltimore. That you can almost guarantee they will not do against Baltimore. They can't run the ball against the Ravens the way that they did against Denver. They're two completely different constructed defenses as far as how that approach will go. Now, it's nice to have Josh Allen. It can be a Josh Allen game, and Josh Allen can take over a game. We know this. But the reason that it was so dominant against Denver is because Denver had no meaningful way to stop Buffalo's run game. Baltimore will be able to suffocate that very, very much. In fact, is Baltimore not Bert just walked out. I should have asked him before he left. Is Baltimore not the number one defense against the run this year?
Their defense has turned around remarkably. Their secondary has turned around remarkably since moving Kyle Hamilton around in the defensive backfield. They destroyed the Bills in September, 35-10. I forgot it was that lopsided. I knew they beat the Bills back in, I believe that was week 4. But, man, I forgot it was just that one-sided. And I remember Derrick Henry having a huge day. He went for 199 against Buffalo at M&T Bank Stadium back in week 4.
So who's under more pressure here? Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson? Because neither of them have won a Super Bowl because the Mahomes thing continues to exist. And then the odd Joe Burrow year that you toss in. Lamar is... I would assume that he is going to be the MVP when finally that is announced. What is that, the week of the Super Bowl? Is it like the Friday before Super Bowl Sunday? I think is when they do NFL honors with that kind of stuff. Who has accomplished more as a player, Lamar or Josh Allen?
Lamar
is the answer.
The individual accolades.
So it's Josh Allen. Like if Josh Allen gets a seat at the table because Josh Allen is one of the 3 most talented quarterbacks in football. Josh Allen arguably is a more talented player than Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes is just better. He's more refined at some of the stuff that Josh Allen has gotten better at. Again, all 3 of them are ascending players, which is horrifying to anybody else trying to get us. I mean, Burrow too. The fact that all 4 of them get better year over year. And who's the oldest among them? Is Pat the oldest among them?
Well, Pat was definitely drafted before them, right?
Yeah, but either way.
Josh Allen's 28.
None of these guys are 30 yet.
Yeah, Lamar is 28.
And they're all getting better. They're all getting better. So it's a horrifying proposition to play football in the AFC unless you've got Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, or Patrick Mahomes.
Mahomes 29. And they're all about the same age.
Still, it's tough.
I think it's a dead heat. I think it's almost dead even. If we're talking about pressure, I know Lamar has the individual accolades, and he might continue to stack on that if he wins MVP, but they both have had the same ceiling so far in their career. Each of them have reached the AFC Championship game once, lost to the Chiefs. So Josh Allen is playing at home. It is so close to me.
But it's Josh Allen because Lamar has the pressure alleviated already for the same reason it's been all year long. He's got Derek.
I'm willing to put Josh Allen over the edge in terms of who faces more pressure because he's on his home field.
You've got 2, that's fair. You've got 2 MVP candidates in the same backfield. Now, I know Derek got 1 MVP vote the year that he had 2,000 yards rushing, but Derrick Henry, I mean, is Derrick Henry not the running back version of these quarterbacks? Like, Derrick Henry has been, at least as a weapon, on the same plane. I understand that he doesn't play the most important position, but Derrick Henry has been the focal point of his offense before. Now he doesn't have to be because you've got 2 of them. That takes pressure off of both of them that Josh Allen does not have. Josh Allen has Amari Cooper. The pressure is on Josh Allen here because he's going to have to do more. He has the steeper hill to climb between these 2, yeah?
Yeah, I agree with that. We put it to a poll. Which quarterback do you trust more in the postseason? You spelled both names right, so sticker for Buck.
You're an idiot.
61% voted Josh Allen over Lamar Jackson so far.
How many polls did you intentionally spell wrong today?
You botched just the one, which is good for you. That's progress. But the question that we asked was not who faces more pressure, but which quarterback do you trust more? And Josh Allen has the edge.
We talked about bringing a relationship counselor in here during the offseason.
It's Jackson.
Should we?
He's qualified.
To do what?
I could be the counselor.
We spend far too much time on this show just talking about us. But which quarterback do you trust more? Is that a more interesting discussion than which one faces more pressure between Allen and Jackson?
Yeah, I would put them much more even on the trust factor than I would the pressure. I think the pressure is decisively more on Josh Allen than it would be. Because I trust them both to do things that will wow me no matter what. Like, to make incredible, spectacular plays unto themselves that they have no business making. Whether it's Josh Allen outside of the pocket, running towards the sideline, trying to wait until somebody breaks open and just whipping a ball 50 yards across his body to an open receiver, or Lamar Jackson bobbing and weaving in the pocket, outside of the pocket, ducking under defenders, either to throw it away or take off on his own, which Josh Allen also can do. Yeah, I don't know which one of them I trust more. That's an interesting conversation. Coming up next, on the Titans coaching staff, where do you want to see change the most? I don't expect them to make changes until they hire a GM, but that doesn't mean that changes shouldn't be made. We'll talk about it. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
It is almost lunchtime, which means it's almost time for Hattie B's. At any one of their 7 locations, the factory at Franklin, Lower Broadway, Melrose, Midtown, Nashville West, and the Nashville Airport, even now at Nissan Stadium. By the way, the factory at Franklin location, open at 7 a.m. now for breakfast. You've got to try it out. Not long before we don't have playoff football on our televisions for the foreseeable future. Divisional round coming up. National championship game on Monday night. Having some folks over for the game. Bring the heat to your event. Whether it's a party, a wedding, a corporate function, let Hattie be your guest of honor. They can do drop-off catering, full-service staffed events. They've got you covered from hot to not and everything in between. And you know they've got the best sides in town. It doesn't even have to be a full-service staffed event. Just order your Hattie B's for delivery on the Hattie B's website, HattieB.com. A family-run restaurant serving up your favorite Southern food and authentic Nashville hot chicken. You know it's the best in town. Let Hattie B's feed your watch party this weekend. $11:02, good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. College hoops, number 6 Tennessee turned it on in the second half, outscoring number 23 Georgia 49-30 down the stretch to win 74-56 and improve to 16-1. Jordan Gainey led with 19 points off the bench. Zakai Ziegler, 16 points, 7 assists, and 5 steals. He is now the all-time leader in steals in Tennessee men's basketball history. Vandy men's hoops got a buzzer-beating win at home over South Carolina, 66-63. Devin McLaughlin with the three-point play with 0.6 seconds left for the Commodores to improve to 14-3. The Titans completed 2 second-round interviews with general manager candidates on Wednesday. Chiefs assistant GM Mike Borgonzi and Bears assistant GM Ian Cunningham. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Whoever's doing the graphics for the website on 3 Sports, they must be stopped. They must be stopped. It's gotten out of hand. There is reporting today from Ed Werder that we touched on in the first hour. By the way, welcome in. Here on 104.5 The Zone, Jackson, Lucas, and me until 1. Report, Deion Sanders would almost certainly take the Dallas Cowboys job if Jerry Jones offers, per Werder NFL. Quote, those around him are encouraging him to pursue it, and that Jones is enamored with the idea. It's a graphic, a picture of Deion Sanders in his Colorado gear with a Cowboy star next to his, I guess that's his right ear, and under the picture of Deion, it just says would. W-O-U-L-D. We have gotten out of hand as a graphic society.
Yeah, the one words are funny.
It needs to be stopped.
Nice spelling.
So, yeah, it is good spelling.
Yeah, see, one of us is good at spelling. The other one is hiding behind my Twitter account with his dyslexia that he's deeply insecure about.
I'm sorry.
That's bold of you to admit.
Did you win your 8th grade spelling bee?
Yes.
Really? Because you just told me during the break that you guys didn't have a spelling bee in middle school.
I don't remember if it was 8th grade or 7th grade.
2nd grade and 8th grade are so different.
Very, very different.
7th. Listening is difficult. 7th.
Okay, just saying. I can produce evidence. I don't know that you can.
Maybe next week we do a show spelling bee.
That's
Well, let's get a little
in the middle of the NFL.
Let's get into the doldrums of the
Conference
offseason.
championship weekend. We're doing a spelling bee as a show. That would be on brand, honestly.
Save that for June, July. So you don't think they would make any coaching changes on Brian Callahan's staff until a new general manager is hired?
I mean, if they haven't yet, why would they before they get a GM in there?
Okay. I mean, according to you,
Because I personally don't think that Brian Callahan wants to make coaching changes.
according to you, this GM is essentially an assistant GM that is a puppet of Chad Brinker. So why does it matter to wait for the GM then? Please explain.
Well, is it according to me or is it according to the team website that's outlined?
I'm just asking you. I'm just asking
of
you.
the situation. Why it would matter to me, I have no idea. Why it would matter to them, I can't answer that either. But all I know is that they haven't made coaching staff changes. Some were at least at bare minimum expected and haven't happened yet. So it's fair to assume that a general manager would get in there once they have all the necessary parties in place. There would be some level of coaching staff audit, and then it would be determined whether or not the people who are currently doing their jobs get to continue to do their jobs. Because who's the biggest example of this? It's Colt Anderson, whose unit settled in, for lack of a better term. It just wasn't awful, the worst, almost the worst that we've seen in NFL history, as it was for basically, 2/3 of the season. Is it safe to say? Am I being dramatic if I say?
I'd say a little over half.
A little over half. So more than half of the season, they were awful. They were the worst. Colt Anderson is still there. That unit improved. They made some personnel changes. They got Justin Hardy more involved, who's been a longtime special teamer. He's technically a defensive back, but he's a special teams player. James Williams, I think, made a difference on special teams. They got Cedric Gray involved in there as well. I don't know that he was necessarily a plus. You could cite examples like the Houston game where there's an 80-yard return in the middle of that, where Cedric Gray was it Damian Pierce? The return?
I believe it was, yeah.
Damian Pierce dead to rights,
Yeah.
And then he just lets him go in an arm tackle and it's 80 yards. So little things like that they navigate on through. But beyond that, coaching staff changes. Is there any one that you think the Titans should make that's not named Colt Anderson? Because that seems to be the one. Well, there's two things that you hear from Titans fans. Again, I don't know if it's a majority. It's just what you see on social media or in our live stream chat or whatever you got. That they want Colt Anderson gone, and they want Brian Callahan to stop calling plays.
Yeah, we put it to a poll, and those are the two most common responses. Colt Anderson is 1A.
Yeah.
But, yeah, can we talk about that? Because I've heard that a lot. Titans fans that say Brian Callahan's got to hire a play caller. And to me, that they brought in Brian Callahan
because he's a play caller
to call the plays, right? They didn't hire him, that Brian Callahan hopes to grow as a coach, as a CEO, as a leader of a locker room, right? And
he's supposed to be able to do. That's the thing he's supposed to be able to do well.
Yeah, and I think he deserves credit for holding this locker room together with how bad things were in a 3-14
the locker
season.
Room deserves credit for holding the locker room together.
The coach also deserves credit, Buck. Like we see it all the time. We see
players police themselves.
Okay. So it's the players' fault that they all hated Josh McDaniels with Vegas.
What?
Josh McDaniels.
What about it?
The Raiders coach, right?
It's the players' fault?
Yeah. I mean, it got very toxic. It got very toxic in Vegas. 1 year of Josh McDaniels. Players wanted him out of there.
People actively hating him.
That locker room was not together. It was a toxic situation.
Yeah,
it was divisive.
It was together in its hatred of Josh McDaniels. What are you talking about?
Okay, so that was Josh McDaniels' fault. So that's a criticism of Josh McDaniels?
It is different to say that a person who was actively hated by apparently his entire football team versus a person who exists in a role. You're trying to conflate two situations that are not even remotely the same.
How would you say the locker room was in year one, the only year, of Nathaniel Hackett in Denver?
Well, I wasn't in there.
Well, they were yelling at each other and fighting on sidelines. It was a bad situation.
It's the players' job to police themselves.
Okay.
And Nathaniel Hackett had zero impact, clearly, on the locker room.
Right. So that's the players' fault, or that's Nathaniel Hackett's fault?
Who's blaming the players for anything?
No, I'm saying you are giving only credit to the players and not Brian Callahan. For keeping things together throughout the course of the year. So when it's flipped around,
I'm giving the bulk of the credit to the players for policing themselves and not freaking out and not being petulant and all these other things. I'm not going to give additional credit where it's not deserved.
Okay. I also think some credit is due to the head coach in that scenario when we see other scenarios
he's a nice guy.
Go the opposite
direction. He's a fine person. How often are the head coaches in the locker room? Almost never. Almost never.
Yeah, but they're talking to the team. There is something to keeping a team together in a 3-14 season.
I'm just saying, don't get ahead of yourself.
I don't think they ever quit on him, is all I'm saying. And we've seen that. We've seen teams be done with their coach in year one. We've seen that. We didn't see it here, okay? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's
it's a bare minimum thing.
Deciding to police themselves in an effort to undermine the coach.
So no credit to the coach. It's only the coach's fault when it doesn't happen. I see what you're saying.
He's a fine person.
besides the point. But the idea of him giving up play calling, like the Titans didn't hire Brian Callahan.
If he gives up play calling, fire him.
Right. Like they didn't bring him in to be the CEO Dan Campbell type. They brought him in for the offense. So that to me is not even in.
Well, they brought him in for the idea of offense.
Sure.
And the Cincinnati Bengals have obviously been successful at offense, but is that more because of Brian Callahan or because of Joe Burrow? That's the kind of thing that they're working their way through. I don't know if Brian Callahan's going to be good at this. I mean, in year one, he was not. How many, again, I maintain that play calling is the thing that the least amount of people are capable of criticizing, like actually able to criticize, because you have no idea what the players are asked to do on any one given play, and you can make assumptions, but you'll probably be wrong on the level of detail that goes into each individual play call. But again, situationally, was Brian Callahan good this year?
Yeah, they were not good in short yardage situations, right? Goal line situations.
On aggregate, was Brian Callahan a good situational play caller?
The offense was not good situationally for the most part. So no, yeah.
The answer is
again, they were 3-14. Nothing was good enough.
So yeah, but that specifically is a part of the reason why they were 3-14. There are a variety of different reasons why they're 3-14. I don't care about the other reasons right now because we're talking about the head coach who calls plays.
I thought this was interesting. True Media Sports tweeted out that the Buffalo Bills ran 148 plays this year with 6 offensive linemen.
Mm-hmm. It's the most in the league.
The most in the league by a lot.
Yeah.
The next most.
They throw out of those personnel groupings a lot.
Yeah. That was 66 more than the next closest team, which was the Titans.
Well, yeah. The only thing that they could do was run the football.
Right.
And they couldn't protect their quarterback, so they had to put in an extra offensive lineman.
I think that's telling. I don't think Brian Callahan came in here with the idea of being the team that runs out the second most plays with 6 offensive linemen.
No, Brian Callahan came in here with a variety of different ideas that didn't do anything because they're 3-14. You know, like it's that, you know, I understand why you're highlighting it, because that speaks to their limitations, right? But it's the same kind of limitations that Tim Kelly dealt with. You know what I'm saying?
The offense was dreadful.
Yeah, and they had to condense their playbook, not run as much as they would have liked to run, because they have to either keep in an extra tight end or keep the running back into chip. Like, they're limiting the amount of routes that they're able to send out in passing concepts because they can't hold up in protection.
It affected everything.
It's the same exact thing. So that is something, like, I don't think Tim Kelly was a bad offensive coordinator. I think his offensive line actively undermined him. I don't necessarily know whether Brian Callahan's going to be a good play caller or a bad play caller. I know that his offensive line in spots actively undermined him, even though it was not as often as it was in 2023, for example.
Did Brian Callahan do more offensively than Tim Kelly? Were the Titans a better offensive team than they were under Tim Kelly?
They scored more points.
They scored more points. They had more 30-point games. Tim Kelly had none.
Yeah, but, I mean, he had an infinitely better offensive line situation than did Tim Kelly. You know.
Infinitely better?
Yes.
It was slightly
Casey
better.
Latham is infinitely better than Andre Dillard.
Yes.
Infinitely better.
He had a rookie left tackle that was better. Otherwise,
infinitely better.
I don't know.
Skoronski was significantly better without the appendectomy situation.
Infinitely better feels like a stretch when the numbers were as bad as they were.
Infinitely worse than Lloyd Cushenberry. Again, they went from the worst offensive line in terms of pass protection to the 5th worst.
Yeah.
That's a significant jump.
That is a significant jump.
And if you look at the numbers in terms of pressures, sacks, pass blocking efficiency, all of these things were markedly improved because they had markedly better personnel.
But to use that terminology, I'd say the right tackle situation was infinitely worse this year than it was last year.
It's just the exact same thing.
It was worse.
NPF didn't even play last year.
Mm-hmm. And it was worse this year.
Yeah.
It affected everything.
If NPF,
the way the left tackle situation did in 2023.
Who started right tackle for the bulk of the year? Like, was it Radens last year?
Wasn't Hubbard still here?
No, Hubbard got hurt early on. Real early on.
But it wasn't that early. Like, Hubbard got some games
like 6 games into the season or something like that. Chris Hubbard had a season-ending injury, and then they had to go back to Nick for a couple of weeks because that was week 6 when NPF made his first start. That was in London against Baltimore, if my memory is correct. No, you know what? They started Dillard at left tackle and then put NPF in at left tackle because they benched Dillard in Baltimore. And then Nick ended up making the next start, which was, I believe, Atlanta, and then Pittsburgh after that.
Didn't Duncan get some run as well?
I mean, Duncan, about as much run as he got this year. I think they tried it.
Chris Hubbard in 2023, the last game that he played was week 10. He got 22 offensive snaps in the Week 10 blowout loss in Jacksonville in the 2023 season.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe they brought him back off injured reserve?
Yeah, he was inactive in Week 8.
Oh, okay.
But he played 100% of the snaps in half the season. Half the season's games.
Okay. So, coaching staff changes. What's expected? I don't know that anything's expected because I think that if I'm Brian Callahan and I'm backing Colt Anderson and he's backed Colt Anderson on a number of fronts, he would say, look how much better our unit got from just disastrous to not the worst ever. But I think that at least you might wait until a general manager gets in here to be able to audit the coaching staff the way that the front office may want to audit the coaching staff and move forward as you see fit. Doesn't guarantee that their coaching staff changes, but we'll take your phone calls coming up next, 615-737-1045, and also talk about who's quarterback 3 at this point in the upcoming draft cycle. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone. There are so many misconceptions out there about ED treatment, and the Tennessee Men's Clinic is here to debunk those. Lots of men assume that if the pills don't work, they have no other options than irreversible surgery to get ED treatment. And the sad reality is that if you go to a doctor for treatment, those may be the only protocols that they have available for you. Don't go through irreversible surgery to treat ED before you've talked to the experts at the Tennessee Men's Clinic. They specialize in men's sexual health issues. It's all they do. It makes them the experts in the field, and they have multiple protocols and options to treat your ED based on your specific needs and what's going on in your body. So don't trust your health to an online pharmacy, and don't feel like you're out of options. The Tennessee Men's Clinic is there to work with you with their patient-centered protocols that are customized to your needs. They have treatments for everything from low testosterone, ED, treatments that increase size and stamina, and everything else in between. So schedule an appointment online today at TennesseeMen'sClinic.com for their Franklin or Midtown location, or call them 615-208-9090. Welcome back to the show, fueled by Hetty B's Hot Chicken. Titans just concluded their in-person interview with Bucs assistant GM John Spytek for the team's GM position as they continue to interview potential general manager candidates. Spell delirium right now in front of the microphone.
Delirium. D-E-L-I-R-I-U-M. Delirium. Why are you looking at Robert?
Nobody knows Robert's in here. Why are you still in here? Get out.
You're just mad I got it right.
Correct.
Can we hear it in a sentence, Jackson?
He probably has it back there. Careful, yeah. Just the button. Even though you made the one word a sentence unto itself.
One word was all that was needed in that time, I felt.
Delirium! 615-737-1045 is the number. Let's go to Steve.
Guys, thanks for taking my call. Lucas, 100% correct on delirium. Golf clap, my friend. Golf clap.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
No problem. This is the Lucas Panzica show, right? I'm just kidding. Hey, listen.
Oh my goodness. You are the worst. what a baby. I'm sorry, Steve.
That was rude.
I'd do it again. What's up, Adam?
Delirium! Steve did not deserve that.
I'd do it again.
Thank you guys for taking my call. I was wondering, Lucas Van Zeke been hired by the Tennessee Titans to be the GM. What would you guys do with the number 1 overall pick? Thank you, guys.
Do we want to go around the room?
We did this right after the season ended, right? Just instant reaction. What do you think the Titans should do with the number 1 pick before Senior Bowl, before the Combine, before all the pre-draft processes? And both of us said draft Shedeur Sanders, right? That's what we both said. But the more time goes by, the more I am in support of the trading back scenario, just to get more bites at the apple, right? Just to get more swings for a roster that has so many needs. And it's intriguing to think about the haul that you could get.
Yeah, but you don't know that.
No, you don't.
And you have to have somebody willing to come up, which famously the last time this team tried to get out of a top 5 pick, they couldn't do it.
Yes, but that was different. That was trying to get out of a top 5 pick because they didn't want to draft the best available wide receiver.
At 5.
And to my knowledge, we could pull up that draft. I mean, who was the best quarterback available when the Titans drafted Corey?
In 17?
Was it Patrick Mahomes?
Well, no, the best quarterback.
Patrick was 16
you
draft,
mean available?
Right?
No, Patrick was 2017.
Yeah, Mahomes
was the best quarterback available.
Deshaun was still on the board at that point in time.
We could have that discussion.
Mahomes and Deshaun were both in that draft.
Yeah.
So with everything that you have going on right now, there's going to be a couple of different ways that you could look at this. Who's the best quarterback in the draft class? The best quarterback in the draft class is Cam Ward.
We think.
Who's the better college quarterback?
Yeah, Cam Ward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's just do it that way then. I think that there are traits there that also lend themselves to Cam Ward being the best quarterback in the draft, the best quarterback draft prospect. And I'm sure depending on who you read or where you look, you might see some differentiation in opinion. But for these quarterbacks, let's flesh this out a little bit. Where would you rank Cam Ward among the players in the first round, among prospects in the first round? Now, I can tell you that Pro Football Focus, and it's one place, but Trevor Sikkema is a person that we trust who does the scouting analysis on these things. He puts together his big board. We'll get Dane Brugler's stuff later on in the year as we get close. I think that usually comes out a month before the actual draft.
Yeah, he has put out his first mock draft, which we can do on Mock Draft Monday.
Okay. Well, maybe we text Dane or Trevor and get the people themselves to come in here and give us the mock draft analysis. Pro Football Focus has Cam Ward, the best quarterback available, as the 17th best prospect in this draft class.
Some don't even have him as a first-round prospect.
Well, Pro Football Focus does not have Shedeur as a first-round prospect. They have him as the 42nd. And interesting enough, they have Dylan Gabriel as QB3 including Milroe and Will Howard, Riley Leonard, and Quinn Ewers, all as potentially available quarterbacks to draft. So we both said Shedeur. I think Shedeur makes the most sense for them if you had to take the quarterback with the number one pick. But again, am I doing that because it's the easiest fit? Or because I don't necessarily trust a staff that was brought in here specifically to develop quarterbacks to further develop the better player? Cam Ward is the better player. In a perfect world, you would be able to put your acumen and your skill regarding the quarterback position towards developing the best possible player. And I don't know that they're out on Cam Ward by any stretch of the imagination. They have to consider both of these players at the top of the draft, no matter what the analysis ends up being.
Well, according to Albert Breer, they love Cam Ward.
Oh, Albert Breer saying that they love Cam
remember, we
Ward?
talked about this.
No, that's Ben Albright. That was not Albert Breer.
Oh, it was Ben Albright. My apologies. You're
Those
right.
are very, very different.
Very different.
In terms
Ben
of...
Albright tweeted that before the game even went final between Titans and Texans.
Yeah, so let's not with that before the game's over.
Yeah. Let's love Cam Ward.
Yeah, okay. And then the GM got fired, and none of it matters. Theoretically. So, with all these things that you have to evaluate, in this scenario, let's just say stick and pick. No trade back scenario, even though trading back seems like the best possible scenario. Is Abdul Carter worthy of the number one overall pick? Because he better be Myles Garrett or Micah Parsons if you're taking him number one overall. And he's in the mold of Micah Parsons, but I'm not interested in comparing anybody to Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons is a force of nature. Myles Garrett is an athletic freak.
Obviously came from the same school.
Yeah.
But it's very hard for me to imagine sticking and picking and not taking a quarterback at one.
Again, there's all manner of surprises in the draft process. And I tend to agree with you. If a team with obvious quarterback needs stays with the number one overall pick and doesn't take a quarterback, how much further do those quarterbacks end up falling?
I mean, truly, when's the last time that happened?
Again, it's a tough thing.
Myles Garrett was the example we came up with in the 2017 draft, but they had a second-round pick in Deshaun Kaiser that they didn't have a complete answer on, the Cleveland Browns at that time.
S. says, there goes Lucas's dyslexia again, mixing BA and AB initials.
Oh, that's fair.
Delirium! Who would be quarterback 3 in this draft? Because Pro Football Focus is saying that it's Dylan Gabriel, and I just don't think that's so.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see where he moves, what direction he goes in, up or down.
It has to be Milroe to me.
It has to be?
Yeah.
Just because of the traits?
Yeah.
Feels like someone's going to fall in love with Jalen Milroe.
I mean, Ewers is the youngest at 21. He'll be 22, I think, by the time we get to the draft process. But Milroe is the second youngest player. He's the traitsiest player, which to me means that he's the player that the most amount of teams might be willing to take a flyer on. He's not a first-round pick, but if Jalen, let's do the exercise this way. If Jalen Milroe, Dylan Gabriel, and Quinn Ewers are all sitting there in the 4th round, which one of those players goes first?
Say the names again.
Milroe, Ewers, and for the purposes of this exercise, Dylan Gabriel. It's Milroe, isn't it?
It would probably be Milroe. The athletic traits just, jump off the tape, right? Man, the regression. It's like, what do you do with that? What do you do with the way he regressed within that Alabama offense from 2023 to 2024?
Landon Fowler on YouTube says Will Levis was traitsy too. Where'd that get him?
Yeah.
The second round.
Yeah, and look,
that's the point.
Will Levis regressed.
Yes.
From 2021 to 2022.
And then from 2023 to 2024.
And we still, we have hindsight. We have hindsight to say, yeah, he was the number one pick in the second round. But before that draft, he was, remember, expected to be a top 5, top 10 pick.
Yeah.
There's a reason why he showed up to the draft.
He was pretty decisively QB4.
Yeah.
But you just thought that QB4 might go in the first round as opposed to the top of the second.
Yeah. So the regression.
And had the Titans gotten their way, he might have gone in the first round.
So the Will Levis regression from his second to last year to his final year at Kentucky did hurt him, but all the way down to pick 33 as opposed to top 5, top 10. So how much will it hurt Jalen Milroe, who I don't think is viewed as the same prospect?
No.
Will Levis was a better prospect than Jalen Milroe.
And also the thing that helped him was, pro-style system, pro-style coaching. And Milroe, I mean, tell me if I'm inaccurate on this. Did Milroe not do less with more? Like Will Levis had significant roster attrition from 2021 to 2022 at Kentucky. Yeah? Where you had a handful of guys, offensive linemen, wide receivers end up in the pros.
Yep, and he was dealing with injuries.
There was a drop-off there. Jalen Milroe had pros all over the place. It's Alabama. Less with more.
He had Ryan Williams,
who won't be draft eligible for 3 more years.
Yeah. Jeremy Bernard, I mean, he had some good players, but Alabama didn't necessarily have a litany of... I know their talent profile, like if you look at the 247 Sports talent composite, Bama, I think, was number 1 this past season. But there was a drop-off in terms of playmakers for Milroe to get the ball to from 2023 to 2024. He had Isaiah Bond in 2023, right? I mean, technically, I think, yes, just if you're looking at the talent profile on paper, but he certainly did not deal with as much of a drop-off as Will Levis in terms of what was around him. I mean, we saw it. We saw it against Georgia. Bama looked like the best team in the country against Georgia.
615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in there. Paxton is next.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call here. So y'all were mentioning earlier, talking about Deion to Dallas, which I think would be hilarious to watch how him and Jones would interact. But I want to ask y'all this question. What would they have to give up to get Shedeur Sanders in Dallas? Because I don't believe for one second that if Deion were to actually get this job, and I don't believe he will, but if he actually did, that he would not want his son playing quarterback for his team. So they pick 12th, I think, overall. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Dallas does?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what would they give up? What is the compensation from them jumping from 12 to, I'm assuming, 1? And I kind of want to hear y'all's take on that. So I'll hang up and listen, guys. Thanks.
Just Dak, if you ask FanDuel Sportsbook.
No, I mean, it was Dak and picks.
No, it was just Dak.
No, it was not.
Yes, it was.
Go back and pull up that graphic. That's not correct.
Yes, it was.
It was just Dak, and the Titans gave up an extra 4th and a 6th.
This is why we made fun of it so much.
What?
That was the FanDuel proposed fake trade scenario. Titans get Dak and send the Cowboys 3 total picks, including number 1 overall.
God.
And next year's 3rd rounder.
Okay.
It was an absolutely insane proposition.
Yeah, not that. Well, see, the problem is, because I know that there is the Jimmy Johnson draft pick valuation chart, right? Where X pick is X amount of points versus Y pick, and what the value is, the equitable value is to get up to that first pick. How much does that factor in when the position that most teams need is considered one of the weaker positions in this draft class? You know, like how much is that going to be factored in to the equation? Because I can't give you, I can't tell you what Dallas would try to offer or what Tennessee would try and get. Tennessee would obviously try and, I think, recoup the 3rd round pick at bare minimum, right? You would get 12 and the 3rd. What is Dallas's third round pick this year? I would need to look it up. Because I think Tennessee's is 66th overall, which, of course, has value. And congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs. They're getting to pick 66th overall.
And we haven't really mentioned this, I don't think, that the Titans do not get the number 1 pick in every round.
No. No, we did talk about that because of the way that that's structured.
Do you know how they determine that rotation? First of all, is that because there are 3 teams with the same record at the top of the draft?
I had looked that up, but I'd have to go back and find it.
Like,
I think it's somewhere in the chat. I don't want to give an incorrect answer.
Ultimately, here, if Brian Callahan just does not have conviction about either Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, the Titans will not draft a quarterback at 1, right?
I wouldn't think so.
Like if the head coach is telling Chad Brinker and the GM that gets hired, listen, I don't like either of these guys.
He doesn't have final say on the roster.
No, he doesn't. But you're trying to put your coach and your team in the best position to succeed. And if your coach is telling you, yeah, I don't see it with either of them, it's hard to envision them drafting a quarterback.
Charlie is next. So, by the way, I know I didn't really answer that question, Paxton, but that's like a tough question to kind of answer. Like, I would at least want a first and a third. And, preferably I would take Micah Parsons on an expiring contract, but I don't think they would go for that in this particular draft. Go ahead, Charlie.
Hey, on Callahan, I thought in addition to being an offensive coach, he was a quarterback whisperer.
Yeah, he's a former quarterback
expert
coach.
on quarterback.
Yeah.
True?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, on quarterbacks, selecting a quarterback, is it a factor as to how any of these prospects would fit into our system, vis-a-vis the system they've been playing in at their college? Some would fit better into our system than others would fit better. Is that a factor?
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. Thanks for the call, Charlie. I appreciate it.
So run that through those top 2 or 3 guys. Which fits best with us?
Shedeur. Yeah, that's kind of where it's at. Thanks for the call, Charlie.
Yeah, Shedeur's offensive coordinator at Colorado is Pat Shurmur.
Yeah.
Former NFL coach.
I forgot he was an NFL head coach for a period of time.
Head coach, offensive coordinator at multiple stops.
So Shedeur makes the most sense if you're just drafting on fit. But again, can you make Cam Ward fit in the system? They couldn't make Will Levis fit in the system, even though Will Levis has higher level traits than both of these players. That's incumbent upon the coach to figure out. The coach didn't figure it out very well this year. And also Levis, we've talked about the maniac moments at great length. More of your phone calls coming up next. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to get in there. There's an interesting statistic about Patrick Mahomes and his place in NFL history relative to Tom Brady and Joe Montana. We'll tell you what that is. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone. Well, Summer by Calvin Harris is an interesting choice on January the 16th, but what do I know? Welcome back to the show.
Manifest it. Manifest warm weather.
I mean, it's supposed to be 53 today. That's warm.
Not next week.
Yeah.
But can you spell manifest?
Manifest?
Oh, what a layup.
MANIFEST.
Correct.
Manifest.
Toddler could spell manifest.
I do.
Score is 1-1.
Do you have to? Are we just going to keep we should like throw a random word in like a couple of times a week or something like that. Like not tell anybody what we're doing. Just have the occasional on-air spelling bee for one of us. I like that as a bit. Do you have to visualize the word and the letters as you spell it out? Because I do.
Oh, for sure. And that,
like I have to. In my head is the letter and it's highlighted, and then I move to the next letter.
Did you ever watch the spelling bee on ESPN, like the national spelling bee?
For sure, yeah.
Right? You would see these kids would like mime write it on their hand. It's like literally they'd pretend to write it on their hand as they're spelling. Well, no, they're not literally writing it.
Yeah,
they're
but
miming it. Yeah, I mean, you're using your hands. You're not using a pen or any other external objects.
I would think that wouldn't be allowed. That feels like cheating.
It's their process.
But even if you write it, wouldn't you technically still be spelling it? I don't think that's illegal.
No. I had dreams of being in the national spelling bee.
Yeah, and then you got on Twitter and realized that you're dyslexic, and that was never going to happen.
Well, when I won my 8th grade spelling bee and I went to the county bee, I feel like somebody bragging about their varsity high school football career.
You might as well come in here wearing your high school letter jacket.
Yeah, that's my version of that, is winning the 8th grade spelling bee. I finished 3rd in the county. I was that close to making the state spelling bee, which if I had won that, then I would have gone to D.C. for the national spelling bee on ESPN.
Did they do it like they do with like a prized hog or something like that? Do they bring you out with a handler and slap a ribbon on you to indicate that you finised 1st, 2nd, or 3rd?
It was an Alabama spelling bee.
What were your spelling bees like? So, you want to know the word that eliminated me from my county spelling bee?
The fact that it still haunts you is
I know.
delightful.
I remember it well. Romaine. Like romaine lettuce.
Isn't that a fairly simple one?
I didn't know what romaine lettuce was. I was in 8th grade. I think I just left out the I.
So you made it Roman?
No, well, there's an E at the end.
Oh, like as in a lion's mane? You made it romaine?
Yes. I didn't know what romaine lettuce was. I had never heard of it. It was just lettuce.
What an idiot. Look at this dumb little... How old are you in 8th grade? How old is an 8th grader?
Oh, what is it? 13?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I think 13.
What a stupid little
14, maybe 14.
I assume that he had a head that was wildly outsized for his body, like Hey Arnold.
Oh, yeah.
Or did you guys ever watch George Lopez?
Always.
Yes,
You know the dream
It was
sequences
always
where they have
on.
the huge heads?
Yeah.
That was me as a kid.
That's Lucas at the spelling bee.
615-737. I swear we were talking about sports, but, that's how these things go.
Patrick Mahomes has a very normally sized head.
Yes, but he has an outsized resume, as we well know. So if I told you that Patrick Mahomes was getting ready, could be, if they beat the Texans, are we all assuming that the Texans are going to lose? Like, nobody is picking the Texans to beat the Chiefs this weekend, yeah? Not a single solitary soul is brave enough to pick the Texans over the Chiefs.
Do you think
some idiot will do it just for the sake of clicks and hot takes or something like that, but sensible people will not pick the Texans over the Chiefs?
Would you guess Texans-Chiefs is the largest point spread in the divisional round?
I guess I would have probably said Commanders-Lions.
It is Commanders-Lions.
Okay.
Lions are a 9-point favorite. Chiefs are an 8-point favorite. Eagles are a 6-point favorite. And as we know, Baltimore is a 1-point favorite in Buffalo.
Patrick Mahomes, if he wins on Saturday afternoon, would be tied with Joe Montana for the second most postseason wins in NFL history. 16 is what Pat would have if he beats the Texans. 16 is what Montana currently has. Do you know how many Tom Brady has? What the gulf is between Montana and Brady currently.
Is it like double?
Damn near. It's just under that. It's 35.
Wow.
35 playoff wins to Joe Montana's 16.
That's over double.
Yeah.
We're not good at math.
Yeah.
We can spell, but we can't do math.
Can we spell?
What's 16 times 2?
32?
32.
I had to think about it.
It is more than Brady has more than double the playoff wins of his idol, Joe Montana.
So, when you consider this, Joe Montana has been like a sacred cow, right? And Brady clearly and obviously passed him by as far as the winning goes. Is Patrick Mahomes a better quarterback than the both of them? He doesn't have the resume yet, but the argument is there to be made that Patrick Mahomes is better than both of them.
I think he is.
I'd agree. But you can't say that about Patrick Mahomes and Brady yet, because who has Mahomes lost to directly in the Super Bowl?
Brady. But that's why we use the phrase baby goat. That's what that's for.
Baby goat?
Yeah.
Who's calling him a baby goat?
So he's been widely called that. Brady is goat. Mahomes is baby goat. Jackson, you've heard this, right? Surely.
Yes, I have heard this.
Okay.
Luke is up next. Hey, Luke.
Hey, what's going on, Buck? First-time caller, long-time listener.
Yeah.
Just wanted to call and kind of on the draft and what the Titans, I think, in my opinion, could do or should do to kind of improve their stock. I'm in the camp of trading back, try to get maybe, say, like another premium pick to get someone like, an edge or a lineman, and maybe explore, or even a wide receiver, and then maybe explore some of those later round QBs. I think if you look at some people, maybe like Jackson Hart, I feel like he's kind of, surging up draft some of his performances, and just maybe try to see if you could play that market, and then maybe bring in, say, a veteran guy to kind of mentor / guide these younger cats for, say, 2-3 years. So just wanted to see what you guys thought about that, and I'll hang up and listen.
Again, you have a number of options to address the quarterback position. There's nothing to stop you from doing the veteran thing and still drafting one in the first round, right? Like we've talked about that scenario over
like the
and over.
Falcons.
And you can do what Luke has just suggested, which is go for, let's say it's Jackson Dart, right? I don't know what valuation, what draft grade, or what round Jackson Dart would currently have among NFL talent evaluators, and it's probably too early to determine that because we have yet to go through combine, pro days, all these different things. All-star games are currently going on right now, or will start to go on right now between the Shrine Bowl. The Hula Bowl, I think, has already happened. You've got the Senior Bowl coming up here in a couple of weeks. So let's say Dart and a vet. Does that mean that Will Levis is out exclusively, or does that mean that you're just at least bringing someone in to compete for the backup quarterback spot with Will Levis?
You know where I'm at. I'd be surprised if Will Levis is on this roster come training camp.
Which I still think is kind of crazy.
But how many QB needy teams? There's a lot of QB needy teams. Okay, how many teams are under immense pressure to take a quarterback?
The Giants.
The Giants
the
probably
Raiders.
More than it, probably the most, right? And they're sitting right there at 3.
Giants, Raiders, Browns.
Now the Raiders will have a new coach and a new GM
and a new quarterback.
Yeah, and it would make sense to get all of those things on the same timeline.
Is Minshew on a multi-year deal? Actually, I think he is. I want to say he's on a 2-year deal. I don't know that off the top of my head. People are suggesting that Levis would be cut. I don't think that. If he's on the roster in training camp, they're going to try and get a pick for him. Even if he's not on the roster in training camp, they're going to try and get a pick for him. It makes zero sense to just cut bait with a second-round pick 2 years in.
Minshew is he'll be on the second year of his 2-year deal. But the Giants are the most obvious, right? Because you've got John Mara publicly saying, yeah, my patience is running thin. We're bringing him back, Joe Shane and Brian Dable.
So stupid.
But they don't, I'm just about
because
out
he
of
doesn't
patience.
want to go through a coaching search is wild to me. I don't understand that at all. I don't get that logic at all. If you already know that you're about fed up with this, but all right, maybe let's see. And then the reporting comes out from ESPN after the fact about all the different ways that Joe Shane has not handled situations correctly. I think that's probably a more, maybe he doesn't fire them in season or whatever. Maybe Brian Callahan is still the most pre-fired coach in America coming into 2025. But I don't know, man. That doesn't compute. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in there if you want. Alex is next. All right, make your joke.
It's a good proposition. Much to discuss on that.
One day, I threatened to stop taking calls a couple of months ago, and you looked at me like I was crazy. And I don't know if they keep doing stuff like this.
You are the king of empty threats. All you make are empty threats.
That's probably true. But that's what I'm prepared to follow through on.
How many times would me and Lucas have been fired if he followed through on all his empty threats?
Or if he had the ability to fire anybody?
Yes.
I think the stopping of taking calls is a better suggestion than it is a threat. That's not a threat. That's a suggestion for the room. Because if they're going to suck this badly, we need to seriously consider, or at least Jackson needs to be better at screening calls. That's what we'll do. We'll do what we usually do as a show. We'll blame somebody else. It's your fault.
So, do you want me to just tell people their calls are bad and hang up on them?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
615-737-1045 is the number. The Titans are going to get up close and personal experience with Shedeur Sanders. We'll tell you how coming up next.
12:01, good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Titans general manager search continues. They completed 2 second-round interviews yesterday with general manager candidates, Chiefs assistant GM Mike Bergonzi and Bears assistant GM Ian Cunningham. Earlier today, the Titans officially completed an in-person interview with John Spytek, the assistant general manager for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Deion Sanders rumblings continue in the NFL in relation to the Dallas Cowboys job. Former ESPN reporter Ed Werder reporting that Deion Sanders has great interest in the Cowboys job, and Jerry Jones is, quote, enamored with the idea of Deion Sanders as his head coach. Tonight, the Nashville Predators host the Chicago Blackhawks at Bridgestone Arena. It's a matchup of the bottom 2 teams in the Central Division. Puck drop set for 7 p.m. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour on this Thursday. Thanks for jumping in. So the Titans are going to get an up-close and personal look at Shedeur Sanders specifically. Now, of course, they would do that anyway throughout the course of the draft process, but any advantage that you can get here would be beneficial, and the Titans do have one such advantage to make a determination as to whether they can work with a player like Shedeur Sanders, or specifically Shedeur Sanders, or not. Shrine Bowl is something that Shedeur is going to participate in. We haven't gone through the list of names. Senior Bowl's list of names is pretty impressive.
2 weeks away
this year, and I know Zach is going to be down there. I'm not going this year. We are. We'll delegate Senior Bowl and Combine, it sounds like, this year. But with everything that's going on right now, any additional time that you can get with these prospects is going to benefit you one way or the other as you try to do your research, because you've survived the Will Levis. Well, you didn't survive it. It cratered you. But you made it through the Will Levis season, and now you have to figure out your quarterback situation. And Shedeur is obviously an option that is going to be available to have. Now, whether or not they want to take him with the number 1 overall pick is a part of what they can figure out here. But the Titans staff is going to work with Shedeur at the Shrine Bowl. 2 head coaches for the Shrine Bowl will be Falcons special teams coordinator Marquise Williams and Giants defensive coordinator Shane Bowen. Titans legend. Williams will coach the East, Bowen the West. The West team also will have members of the Titans offensive staff too, meaning they will get to coach players such as Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders. So it's not just about Shedeur, but Shedeur is the headliner here. And Tennessee getting the opportunity to continue to work with him, or to work with him for the first time. Their offensive coaching staff getting to work with them for the first time, and trying to understand up close and personal the differences between Cam Ward and Shedeur if they do indeed end up going with a quarterback. There's nothing that makes them have to go with a quarterback. They need to be decisive, though, on either of these players, one way or the other.
And we don't know which coaches specifically, right?
It did not clarify which offensive coach. I could probably find that out. So maybe we can do that before the end of the show today. But very different prospects that you're working with. Titans obviously have the top pick, as we've talked about. Both of these players are going to be viewed differently by both teams. Now, they have to keep their options, or they have to have as open a mind as humanly possible about the quarterbacks, right? There can be no situation that they just rule themselves out of prior to doing their due diligence. Draft, veteran, stopgap, otherwise. All options have to be on the table for a team like Tennessee. Will Levis is still here. We understand he's under contract. We went through the things, or we let Brian Callahan tell you the things that he was looking for specifically for what they currently don't have in the Titans quarterback room, which is the lack of turnovers, the decision-making, the ability to isolate and eliminate as far as going through your progressions, and everything else that Will Levis did not provide to you in 2024. Now, they didn't go to the Senior Bowl last year because they were too busy putting together Brian Callahan's coaching staff.
Brian Callahan
and Rand Carthon didn't go to the Senior
Chad
Bowl.
Brinker did.
Chad Brinker and Anthony Robinson did, the president of football operations and the assistant general manager at the time. Obviously, Anthony Robinson and Rand Carthon are no longer here or no longer with the organization. I would expect that Brian Callahan, in fact, I think he said something to the effect about going to these all-star games. In fact, he made an emphasis going back to not this past Monday's press conference, but 2 Mondays ago, where he said he wants to get back to his roots, essentially, that scouting was a big part of his process when he was a position coach or a coordinator, and that this will be an opportunity for him to not have all the frenetic energy of putting together a coaching staff and getting your family moved from Cincinnati to Tennessee and finding a house and all these other things.
Yeah. He didn't get to do it last year.
Didn't get to do it last year because they were putting together the coaching staff.
He said in that season wrap-up presser that I'm back to my Cincinnati days where I plan on being involved in all of it. I'll be at the All-Star games. We'll be full force at the Combine. We'll be at the pro days. I'll be at all these guys' pro days. He said we'll bring them all in, all these prospects. We'll turn over every stone and we find the right one. And it's all the players in the rounds. But I love the scouting process. I love being involved in it. I love going to the All-Star games.
So,
said I'll be much, much more present in that part of it this year than last year.
And I believe him because there's a million different. It's like being a rookie, right? Rookie player. How your life, you're just constantly trying to keep your head above water as a rookie coming into the NFL. Just as it's. I mean, I'm sure to an extent it's like anybody's first job out of college or something like that. Like there's a lot going on, and you're trying to figure out, all right, how do I pay my rent, or where do I pay my rent, and what date do I, need to have bills paid, and versus how am I going to get there? Can I afford a car? All these different things that you're trying to deal with that are real life things that have no actual impact on your job, but of course are going to help you be the most successful as humanly possible at your job.
Yeah, you've never been through an off season, right? You get drafted, and then suddenly it's May, and minicamp is coming up. So all these Titans rookies, Latham, Sweat, all of them are going through January, February, and then free agency for the first time in an offseason as an NFL player. Callahan's kind of going through something similar. You never think about that from a head coaching perspective.
And you probably should. We haven't had to for a while because they had the same head coach in place for 6 years. So all that to say, I believe, there's plenty of reasons to believe that Brian Callahan is going to get appreciably better in year 2. And I feel like I haven't said that very often because I was so down on the year 1 experience across the board from everybody that it was pretty easy to cast some things to the side and just be like, and to essentially be dismissive of them, because not only were they were losing by double digits. So they lost 14 games. 7 of the games they lost by 10 points or more. They were miles away from meaningfully competitive. So it was very easy to just be dismissive of the entire product and say, well, they're not going anywhere in 2024. We'll see if they can pull it back together in 2025. There's reasons to believe, if you want to give anybody the benefit of the doubt, I don't necessarily think you should, but you can if you want to think that Brian Callahan, with more time, legit experience now, his level of football acumen that he does bring to the table, because it's not like this guy's a bum, like, he is a successful NFL coach for a reason.
It's less about just having blind trust, because trust is a privilege, right? You don't get the trust until you prove something, until you show proof of concept with wins, with players drafted if you're in a front office position. But you don't have to have blind trust in a coach or general manager or whoever it is. But you can also say, we don't have a final answer. I don't think we have a final answer on who Brian Callahan is as a head coach. Yeah.
But I also didn't think they had a final answer on Rand Carthon as a general manager, and they were very quick to kick that to the curb. So, let's just try and keep the same energy with everything. It would be my position on it. I think that with everything that Brian Callahan has to offer, that specifically the scouting of the quarterback position will benefit the Titans, and to have that level of expertise or supposed expertise, because again, the resume is littered with quality quarterbacks, and the first time that he gets one that's not, at least Pro Bowl caliber in Will Levis, kind of poops the bed. Not kind of, it's 3-14. They did. I do expect, though, that he means what he says, and that he's going to be very, very hands-on in the pro day, scouting, combine, all of it process, the pre-draft process that he did not get to dive headfirst into last year for a variety of different reasons. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to weigh in. Let's go to Ken.
Hey, let me ask you a couple questions. I wonder if Lucas has thrown his hat in the ring at all for Mike Keith.
He literally hasn't paid attention to the show for a week because he's been too busy sending resumes.
Okay. Now let me ask you another thing. If Vrabel was still coach, do you think we'd still have Henry?
No.
You don't think there's anything that would kept Henry here?
No, he wants to win, and they weren't winning anything.
Oh. So you think Vrabel would have doubled the number of wins that we had?
I think Mike Vrabel would have probably won more than 3 games, but again, that's a hypothetical that we couldn't possibly know the answer to.
Oh, I know. Okay. Well, thank you, man.
All right, very good. How many resumes have you sent today?
It goes without saying that Derrick Henry would not have done what he did in Baltimore, right?
No.
Like, we don't have to
But Derrick
say
would have
that.
had another successful season because Tony Pollard got
1,000 yards.
Got to 1,000
For
yards.
sure.
And Derrick Henry is, maybe I won't say twice the running back he's twice the running back that Tony Pollard
He's a Hall of
is.
Fame running back. I'm ready to just start calling him a Hall of Fame running back.
I'm good with
right?
that, too.
Like, before this season, we were like, oh, yeah, he could be. But now I think it's like, no, dude belongs in the Hall of Fame.
I'm good with that, too. Let's take more of your phone calls coming up next and also talk about the best divisional round games. Not the one that you think is going to be the best, but the matchups that you think are going to be the best. Maybe those things are the same. You'll hear from Greg Cosell. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. With these chilly winter temps setting in, be sure not to leave your wealth management goals out in the cold. Call Trajan Wealth today because you're asking yourself, I'm sure, or you have asked yourself at some point, will you have enough money when you retire? When should you start to draw from Social Security? If these questions keep you up at night, Trajan Wealth is here to get you on the right track and guide you through it. That's TRAJAN Wealth. Not just any financial firm is Trajan Wealth. They're your partners in securing your financial future. And they're more than just a fiduciary firm. They're a family-owned, veteran-led team that puts your needs first. Let their decades of experience specializing in retirement planning and wealth management work for you. Trajan Wealth offers free consultations to help you develop your plan and your peace of mind. So call them today at 615-270-5000. That's 615-270-5000, or visit them online at TrajanWealth.com. Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. This is a paid advertisement. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. It's officially lunchtime. Consider the best hot chicken anywhere in these United States or anywhere in the world, quite frankly. Hattie B's Hot Chicken, any one of their Middle Tennessee locations. If you're listening outside of the Tennessee area, they got you in Atlanta, they got you in Vegas, Dallas, Austin. Where else? Am I missing anywhere?
Birmingham.
When are we taking the chicken international?
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, you're starting to see Nashville hot chicken.
It's everywhere.
Flavors just popping up all over the place.
Instead of letting these middling, national chicken brands grift off Nashville hot chicken, why don't we just take the actual hot chicken to the people?
Yes, for sure. And divisional round is obviously coming up. National championship coming up on Monday. I can't think of a better way to feed even if it's not a watch party, just a couple people coming over to watch the game. Or just you.
Yeah. Eat
Order
your chicken
for delivery.
in peace.
HattieB.com.
Watch your football. Enjoy it. HattieB.com, like Lucas says. We'll get back to the phone calls here in just a second. Well, actually, we should probably stick with the phone calls because they're Titans related and we're getting ready to talk divisional round. And obviously, the Titans aren't in the postseason this year. Let's go with Cody.
Hey, so I was calling in. I think that the two most important things are the quarterback position and being able to affect the quarterback. So what I think the Titans should do is I think that they should swap picks with the Raiders and then try to get Max Crosby and get their third-round pick. And then maybe at that point, if they wanted to, maybe package something and move back up and get Abdul Carter. And then maybe at that point, even if you don't get your quarterback, you can affect the quarterback moving forward.
Yeah, I think Zach Lyons posed a similar hypothetical about Max Crosby. Like, again, you have options at your disposal. They're all just hypotheticals until we get there. But, yeah, you desperately need pass rush help. Harold is in a situation where you could get out from under his contract if you wanted to this year. Where are we on Harold Landry?
Yeah, Landry.
Because he had 9 sacks this year.
Fell just short of a double-digit sack season. The Titans did not have a single player with a double-digit sack season. Titans bottom of the league in pressures. 91. They were third to last in sacks with 32.
Yeah, I just don't know. I mean, the options are cut Harold and try and add a veteran who can give you a little more juice. Trade for a veteran that can give you a little more juice. But you have to have multiple options here, and the Titans. I mean, Jeff can affect the quarterback from time to time. Sweat was not. Sweat has the potential. Sweat isn't doing it consistently yet.
When have we seen Harold Landry at his best? What circumstances around Harold Landry have led to his most productive seasons?
When he was surrounded by more quality players.
Yeah, opposite a Bud Dupree, right?
Yeah, when Bud was on the field, they were solid together, but Bud was just never on the field.
Yeah,
so that was kind of the hurdle there.
I mean, would it be
because Harold Landry and Jeff Simmons were a part of the worst third down defense in the history of football in 2020.
Yeah, they couldn't affect the quarterback.
No.
So, yeah, I see what you're saying. You cut Landry, try to get a higher impact player, but does it have to go that route? I mean, put Landry in a better position by adding a high impact player opposite Harold Landry.
Okay, again, it depends on what your options are, because do you keep Arden Key too? He's got another year left on his deal. Arden was the more effective player this year.
Yeah, and he's not necessarily
crazy.
Doesn't break the bank.
No, he's way more cost effective than Harold is.
So I don't think it has to be. I don't think you have to cut Landry or Arden Key.
No, you would. The only situation in which it would make sense for you to cut Harold Landry is if you were getting a Max Crosby and that contract, right?
Sure.
To have to, because again, they have some ballpark somewhere between, depending on where you look, $60 or $80 million. You're not cash flush entirely the way that you were last year. You still have cap space to work with, but you have a million different needs across the board. So the only reason that I would, if I was to advocate for cutting Harold, it would be if you were acquiring a player with the contract of a Max Crosby, or if you were able to work out a deal with Dallas with Micah on an expiring deal en route to paying Micah, because you would have to pay Micah on the other side of that, which I think is the most far-fetched of these options. But, they're all hypotheticals until you see actual transactions taking place.
I don't think in real time, I did not realize it. I knew the Titans were struggling to consistently affect the quarterback.
They were bad.
But, yeah, you look back at it, and bottom of the league in pressures.
It's really bad.
And look, and I know the pass defense number is very skewed, especially when you're getting into these big deficits. Like, I remember in the 2017 season, to take it down to college football, Tennessee, 4-8, right? Butch Jones gets fired. Vols had the number one pass defense in the SEC. Why? They were getting destroyed every game. They were getting blown out. Teams weren't throwing the ball in the second half against Tennessee. So that was a big part of it. But with all the injuries to the secondary, is it fair to say that the defensive backfield kind of punched above its weight in some ways? Because Jarvis Brownlee is playing a much larger role than anticipated. Darryl Worley suddenly has to be a key contributor. Quandre Diggs goes down. Amani Hooker had a nice season. So if they can be healthy in the secondary in 2025 and can address the pass rush, then you feel good about the defense being able to take another step forward.
Man, that's the same thing we said last year. Like, these are all ifs, and
then
you are
those
completely accurate, and then they didn't happen.
They didn't happen.
You have one of the statistics of the Titans defense are fraudulent to an extent. Some of the statistics. Some of them are very telling, like the ones that you just cited about their pressure rate.
It didn't happen because they didn't stay healthy and they didn't have the players to make the impact on the edge. All right? Can they stay healthy and can they add players to make that impact on the edge?
I just, the health thing, they as a team were healthier than they have been for 3 straight seasons. So the health thing,
it's not
you got to figure it out.
Yeah. The cornerback room got hit in particular more than any other singular
They don't have
position.
juice up front. It's hard to win as a defense when you don't have the horses to get there. John is next.
Guys, so I got a quick question. I'm not a big fan of the veteran quarterback route, but speaking of the divisional round, there's a guy that I would like to see in the Titans uniform. How do y'all feel about a reunion of Marcus Mariota and getting a guy like Will Howard or Jackson Dart to kind of back him up?
I've done the Marcus thing. I don't need to do it again.
The market for him will be interesting.
Yeah.
He's a free agent.
And Marcus has been on how many teams since he left the Titans? Falcons, Raiders, Eagles, Commies? Is that the list?
Yep.
I mean, yeah, there's a Mason Rudolph world for Marcus Mariota, and he's a good presence to have. He's a calming presence. I think he's had a great impact because I know the person, and I know the way that he treats people, and I know he's had a significant impact on Jaden Daniels. Vibes would be great around Marcus until you gave him an extended sample size, and then Marcus's limitations would again show up because he's still dealing with a lot of those things that were brought on by injury. And again, you don't have a good offensive line. The offensive line situation is appreciably worse. I mean, save Marcus's rookie year, right? Before they had Conklin and Ben Jones and, I mean, who were the guards? Klein and Spain were the 17 year, and then they dropped off, I think, pretty significantly, and you were still having to patchwork it together.
Yeah, there was a Jameel Douglas experience in there.
Well, for about 4 games until they, who was Calais Campbell was on the Jags at the time, and he just ragdolling Jameel Douglas out there.
Thursday Night Football.
Aaron Stinney went on to be a Super Bowl champion, the starter for the Bucs. That one, maybe premature. Maybe it was just a system thing. But like the offensive line situation for Marcus, you got to have a better offensive line situation for Marcus.
Mariota is in career backup mode, right? Like Jameis Winston out of the same draft.
But that's a stopgap situation, right? I mean, you're talking about a career backup largely if you're talking about a stopgap, unless you're talking about one of these vets at the end of their rope. Carr, Rodgers, Kirk Cousins isn't available till he is, so I would almost take Kirk out of this conversation. Or you're going to pay damn near top of market for a guy like Sam Darnold, which I would not advise you do.
Are they taking your advice?
I think that's advice it's a fair point by you. That advice, though, I think is pretty sound.
You act like it's such a slam dunk. You do not want Sam Darnold on your football team. Like it's
you do
not
not
even
want
up for
Sam
debate.
Darnold on this football team, Lucas. This football team is different than the football team he is currently playing
Would
for.
Sam Darnold give you better quarterback play than you got this year?
Yes. But
I just don't think it's that much of a
Sam
slam
Darnold.
dunk.
Well, listen, the quarterback play that they got this year was a particularly kind of horrifying. Like, do not give me the comparison of this quarterback play to what every other team in the NFL seemingly got at the quarterback position, where the quarterback in week 2 is talking about rewiring his brain in ways that make steam come out of your ears. Yes, Lucas, you could find a quarterback that would not actively throw away games as often as the one that they had starting the bulk of their season this year. Yes, congratulations to you. Give him $40 million.
A lot of teams had dreadful.
Oh, my God.
Dreadful quarterback play this year. But look,
but this was a particular kind of dreadful because it was specific to turnovers and directly led to you being tied for the most giveaways in football.
As it was for the Giants, as it was for the Browns, who were paying their quarterback, who has been terrible, millions and millions and millions of dollars.
If you want to advise people to bring Sam Darnold on a big contract to this particular team, when you just saw what happens when you get pressure on Sam Darnold, even if they are improved from the worst, they're still the 5th worst.
I'm just not as dismissive of it.
I'm not dismissive of it.
You are very dismissive.
I'm not dismissive of it. I think it's a bad idea. Like I don't want to waste time with a highly compensated quarterback when you know that the results are not going to be anywhere close to what Minnesota got this year. You don't have Justin Jefferson. You don't have Christian Darrisaw. You don't have an offensive line situation that makes you feel comfortable even when a Christian Darrisaw goes down.
Right.
You saw the way that the Rams punked the Minnesota Vikings this weekend because the Minnesota Vikings were clearly outmatched against that defense, and Darnold crumbled.
He did in the biggest moments of the season. But again, let's not put the cart before the horse here. Like, do we need to be?
They literally don't have the cart or the horse.
Do we need to be eliminating Sam Darnold because he can't win in the playoffs? How about we just get to the playoffs? How about you get a quarterback that can just raise your level of play in a way that you are just contending for the playoffs before you worry about a guy who just can't win in the postseason?
If you pay a quarterback $35 to $40 million to try and get to the playoffs, people are going to freak. I almost said a bad word. Freak the hell out. It's not a good idea here. Here specifically, it's not a good idea.
Fine to have that opinion, but it is up for debate.
Dustin is next.
Hey, guys, how are you?
Good.
I got a bold prediction here. Say the NFL is a business, and as we all watched the Titans this year not perform well, the seats were empty. So I predict we're going to draft Shedeur to put butts in the seats, and then Callahan's going to fumble the season, and we end up with Dion next year, and maybe he can turn our small market into a big one since he does have a reputation of that.
The last thing that I want to do is care about 2026 before we get through 2025, but I appreciate your prediction.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the playoffs? Greg Cosell was on the podcast this morning. It's available everywhere?
On wherever you get your podcast.
Okay. YouTube, it will be available when?
TBD.
Today, at some point, it will be available.
When the time feels
upon
right.
pain of death.
When the mood strikes.
See, that's another empty threat.
I don't think that one's empty.
Very empty.
I don't think that one's empty.
Are empty.
That's the most empty threat.
I don't think so.
You were hearing
You
the
won't
threats.
touch a hair on my head.
Even HR isn't taking my death threat seriously.
Yeah. It's like, man, you're like the boy who cried wolf.
I don't even know if you can spell death threat.
Well, we know Lucas couldn't if it was on Twitter. So, there's a variety of different things that are interesting about this NFL divisional round. The wild card round, do I have to call it super wild card round if it wasn't super?
I think you should be legally required to.
I do think it's you're contractually obligated to call it super wild card weekend. There were some super performances. There were not super games. There was one super game. What you have here are the best, I would say, at least to the eye, it's one of the better divisional rounds that we've had in the last couple of years because it's got a bunch of variants. So chronologically, it's the Texans at the Chiefs. You'll get the both number one seeds back in action on Saturday. Texans at Chiefs, Commies at Lions, Rams at Eagles, and then the finale is the Ravens at the Bills, which is, of course, the marquee event. Now, it's very easy to say that the Ravens and the Bills will be the best possible game. But what did you point out earlier in the first hour, the last time these two teams met?
The Ravens destroyed the Bills.
Destroyed them.
In September.
And that was very early on.
Months ago.
Teams are still finding their stride in September. Just because you looked one way in a certain month or week of the season does not mean that those things are necessarily transitive to what the next matchup will be, though it can inform your ability to tactically game plan. Greg Cosell pointed out something specifically today about the Bills that they displayed in their first-round domination of the Denver Broncos that will not be available to them, theoretically, when they play the Ravens on Sunday night.
It's interesting you say that because the Bills clearly decided going into the Broncos game that they could physically beat the Broncos front. And they came out, and as I said, they play with 6 offensive linemen, the most of any team in the league. They did that a lot. Cook had 13 carries in the first half. 9 of them were on first down. So they came out in this game and pretty much said, we can beat you. We can physically beat you running the ball. Now, I don't know if they can do that against Baltimore. Baltimore's got a really big defensive front, really big, and I think they're number 1 or number 2 in the league in rush defense. They're really hard to run against. So obviously that's one of the main parts of this game, main matchups. We don't know the answer to it. So the question is, how did the Bills see themselves going into that side of the ball with that matchup? Do they think that, hey, we can run it and we're going to try, or we have to back off the run a little bit and make this more of a Josh Allen game? That's what you don't know. The weather is supposed to be brutally cold.
That's Greg Cosell of NFL Films detailing why exactly it is that the Bills may not have the same level of success or specific game planning success against the Broncos or against the Ravens that they did against the Broncos. And that makes sense, right? What happens when you got a lighter defense that's got fast pass rushers, but not necessarily the kind of weight to them? You're just going to try and run the ball on them. And Buffalo, with one of the better offensive lines in the league, was able to dominate as a result. Then you go to you host Baltimore that has, how many defensive linemen for the Ravens have the number 3 in front of their weight? Michael Pierce is for sure 300-plus pounds, even if the bus runs out of gas from time to time. That's a big boy. Is it Travis Jones, the former UConn defensive tackle, who's just a mammoth of a man that they have up front? They've got a variety of different players. Matabike isn't exactly that same mold, but he's a hugely effective front 7 player for them. You are not going to be able to run the ball on the Ravens the way that you ran it on the Broncos, because you essentially took Denver out of that game. Because you have a diversity in your run game that allows you to operate that way, but this is going to be a Josh Allen game. Does that benefit one side or the other? Nobody's in an advantageous position when Josh Allen has the ball in his hands because he's a force of nature. Josh Allen is akin to Derrick Henry in terms of NFL forces of nature that are out there that are damn near impossible to stop. Unless, you're Jeff Simmons on the goal line and you can, maybe there's a slip, but maybe you also catch him because you're the same size as that dude and I'll meet you in the A-gap. That game is going to have the most intrigue by far. I think my favorite game on the board, honestly, though, is the Commanders and the Lions.
Yeah. It's the
most curious matchup, like how these coaches are going to try and attack one another's schemes. Obviously, you're attacking players, but you're coaching against another coach. You're coaching against that coach's system. What Washington does, like Aaron Glenn versus Cliff Kingsbury, I think is fascinating. Why is the volume up on your monitor?
I don't know. I didn't know it could do that.
Yes, you did. You found that out months ago.
I was
here.
Yeah.
Why are you lying in front of microphones?
I guess just being around you rub off on me. The 2 best vibes teams in the NFL this season, Lions and
Commies and Lions?
Yes. There have been no 2 happier fan bases
probably
in the National Football League. I still contend the Commanders are the happiest. Just from last year to this year.
Oh, I don't know. I did a game at both, Bud, and Ford Field it's like the Super Bowl every time. Listen, FedEx Field, or it's not even FedEx Field anymore. Northwest Stadium, is that what it's called now?
Northwest Stadium now.
Northwest Stadium, even though it's in the Northeast, whatever.
In Landover, Maryland.
Yeah. The logistics of getting to Landover, Maryland for a team that I think had lost 2 in a row coming into that Titans game, or maybe even 3 in a row coming into that Titans game.
They were on a losing skid.
Versus Detroit, that's just dominated everybody, seemingly, with only 2 losses on the year. The vibes were immaculate in Detroit. Washington, they were having a good time, but not to the level of the Lions.
There are multiple teams this season, I feel like, that are just having special seasons, right? Like seasons that their fan bases are going to remember forever.
Well, again, it's about how much more do the haves this year have versus the have-nots.
I mean,
like the bottom of the NFL is putrid. The top of it is spectacular.
Lions, Commanders, Ravens, and Bills. I would have said that about the Vikings before they crashed out with those losses to the Lions and the Rams. Just multiple. I mean, the Chiefs 15-2, multiple teams that are just having these special seasons, and some of them get pitted against each other.
Must be nice. So, I mean, we're most interested in the Ravens and the Bills.
It's the best game of the weekend.
It's the best game, the two best teams. Although, I mean, the two best records are Washington and Detroit, ironically enough. 13-well, I mean, I guess that's counting postseason wins, but it's 13-5 at 15-2 versus 13-5 at 14-4. If you're counting the most recent playoff wins for the Ravens and the Commanders and the Bills.
Last big football weekend before the offseason. Like, this is the last time that we get Saturday.
Why would you bring down the vibe like that?
Just to appreciate it. We get Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Until one of these games is terrible and then there's just rampant bitching on the internet.
I'm so worried about that. I'm so worried that Ravens and Bills is just
going to be a bad game?
A blowout, or like just the Ravens get up there and just win.
I don't know. I think any game that has Lamar and Josh Allen in it with postseason stakes, when they're directly competing again head to head, even though the MVP stuff has already been decided, I just think there's too much force of nature power in that game for it to be bad.
I would hope so.
Well, we'll find out on Sunday night. Last call for phone calls if you got them, 615-737-1045. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Last call for phone calls if you got them. That was abrupt.
Kendrick through the trapdoor.
I mean, just send him to the shadows. 615-737-1045 is the number. Darrington, hopefully on a solid phone line, is up next.
Hear me clearly?
Mm-hmm.
Good, okay, because I want to make this clear. I have to do this seem like once a year. And I want to start off by saying this. People, I have no personal relationship with Buck Rising or Lucas Panzica or the radio station when I say this.
Well, that's hurtful.
It's very frustrating. It's 180-something people on the YouTube watching. It takes 1 second to hit the like button. 1 second. Y'all don't even do that. I'm not on the YouTube. I had to go get the like button. Why y'all can't do that? It ain't even hard. Second of all,
thank you.
For all y'all people that like to comment on the Buck's post when he gives an opinion, whether it's Twitter or X or whatever, he's giving his opinion. Y'all get on social media and try to drag this man because he gave his opinion. If you don't like it, don't comment. Don't follow. There's a button you can hit, and it says unfollow. You can mute. You can do all of that. But yet y'all want to waste your breath and your energy by making a negative comment. Why? He is a human being just like anybody else. Everybody has a butthole. You got an opinion too? Use it that way. Because y'all be saying some of the most outlandish stuff that I've ever seen in my life. And it's kind of frustrating. Lucas has an opinion. Y'all like to drag him for what he says. It is an opinion. They're on the radio station giving their opinions. They're not doing anything else. You have an opinion. Unfortunately, you're not paid to be on the radio station to give yours. Then, if you're going to call into the radio station, understand you might be on hold 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, whatever it is. You chose to do that. Be mindful that you're on the radio station and on hold because there's people that actually might want to hear what your take or your opinion is. But for you to have your phone on mute or you doing other things, then don't call the radio station at that time. Evidently, you're not free enough to make that phone call. Then, when you call in, hey, Buck, am I clear? Can you understand me? Before you start speaking, if you have a speech impediment and you stutter, you only have 60 seconds. Say what you got to say. You don't have time to get a 2-minute statement out in 60 seconds because you have a speech.
He's still going. Somewhere out there, he's still going.
My count is 140 seconds.
You gave him 2 whole minutes?
Well, you're saying nice things.
You did. I mean, I'm glad to see you.
I have
clear,
no control over the music.
Well, you certainly didn't call for it.
I literally said music.
When he's saying all the nice things for you.
After approximately 100 seconds, yes. Darrington, hit us with your Venmo, man.
Did we do something on Twitter that people are agitating?
I don't know. You embarrassed yourself with the polls, but other than that, I don't know of any opinions that people were freaking out about.
Your inability to claim responsibility for even the slightest task around here is one of the most frustrating.
No, you're just embarrassing yourself at this point. You got to stop while you're ahead.
How do you spell? Which one did you get the most wrong? Would you say? Is it Kale McCord?
Which one you got?
Did you even get that correct? McCord, did you get McCord
I think
correct?
you should be most embarrassed by Jalen Milroe, which you spelled Jaylen and the last name Milrow. Not sure what you were thinking. All you have to do is look up his name.
You are welcome to hide behind me with your dyslexia, but just know we all see you and your insecurities.
I have a spelling bee question for both of you. Facade.
Oh, Facade. Come on.
I thought he said sod, as in like grass.
Facade.
Oh, facade. Yeah. Okay.
Got to be correct. Got to be harder than that.
2-1, Lucas.
We will see if we can even the odds potentially tomorrow. Do you have polls? Are you ready for that? You don't look ready.
No.
You're not ready.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. What Titans coaching staff change do you most want to see? Karen, Anthony, Ricky, multiple people say Colt Anderson. That is the number one submission. And if anyone in the replies did not say Colt Anderson, they're saying Nick Holtz, the offensive coordinator.
Lucas, I have one final spelling bee question for you. To win the day, spell ICUP.
Oh, come on. What are we, 4 years old? What's happening here?
I mean,
I have not heard that.
You spell like a 4-year-old based on your Twitter behavior.
I have not heard the ICUP joke since sitting at a cafeteria table.
8th grade spelling bee champion. What are you scared?
That is 4th grade humor.
Look at him running.
That's
Look
not
at him
even
running.
That's
the
not
inability.
even 8th grade humor.
I mean, cup isn't even a hard word. It's one syllable.
Which quarterback do you trust more in the postseason? 62% say Josh Allen. That's who they trust more than Lamar Jackson.
That's stupid.
That's stupid.
That's stupid.
How would you rank I feel like it's incredibly close, actually. Nope. I feel like they are about neck and neck.
It's stupid.
How would you rank these 3 quarterbacks? Tom Brady, Joe Montana, and Pat Mahomes. Smashvillian is going Brady, then Mahomes, then Montana. John says at the moment, it's Brady, Montana, Mahomes. Mahomes is moving up quickly, though, he says. Kenneth is going Brady, Montana, Mahomes. Tanner says Brady, Mahomes, Montana. Montana is probably at the bottom of the list, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what Patrick Mahomes is doing.
Now, also, there is a slight generational blind spot for you and I.
For sure. But if Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs win the Super Bowl and they three-peat, then that puts him even in a different
He's a better quarterback than Brady. He is a better player than Brady was. Brady is a better winner.
Yeah. As of now. Yes. But again, a three-peat puts you in a different stratosphere.
It's never been done.
Yeah. Who do you expect to be QB3 in the NFL draft? Most people voted for Jackson Dart. He got 50.4% of the votes. And then Quinn Ewers, which you spelled E-U-W-E-R-S, got 21.8% of the vote. Jalen Milroe.
E-U-W?
Yeah, you put a U in front of the W.
You made him a Euro?
Jalen Milroe got 20.3% of the votes. Kyle McCord. It's Kyle, Buck. It's embarrassing. Kyle McCord got 7.5% of the votes. But Jackson Dart got the great majority.
One of these days, I'm going to get a hold of your Twitter account, okay? And I'm gonna do some. Now nobody will care, but it's going to be fine. It'll be personal satisfaction because now at this point it's a vendetta.
It's logged in the prod room.
Look how quickly he threw you under the bus.
Do your worst. You think Buck knows how to work the prod room computer? You think Buck can get into that
Where
thing?
is the prod room?
Exactly. Those are the polls.
I show up at 9:59, I talk for 3 hours, and then I get the hell out of here. That's how this works. That's going to do it for us today. Primetime tonight. We will dive into some Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward subject matter as it relates to the Tennessee Titans and their draft position. You can check that out on A to Z Sports. You can enjoy Blaine and Zach next.